Yeah,
Kane's gonna name the trait. Kane's gonna bite the bullet.
well, I mean, I'm pretty sure he will, but I was more interested about the meta objections to name the trait because it seems like, or at least I've got the impression um, that you guys have such an objections. That perhaps I assume that some type of fallacy is being committed when the question is being asked. If you want to bite the bullet, then I take that you agree that there is no issue with asking the question. And by issue, I mean no fallacy is being committed, and yeah.
That wasn't the comment was like that is just pointing out something trivial about like, vagueness, which is where you're like, oh, okay, values lost at some vague point. Okay, great. What have I learned? Nothing.
Well, I mean, maybe you didn't learn anything. Maybe you did. Maybe you were unaware of the entailment of your position, and there are many people that I've talked to that didn't know that that's entailed on their view. And
Well, I mean, those people are obviously dumbasses because they think entailment is a meaningful thing.
well, maybe I don't know. But the point is that they did learn something, right? And what exactly is the problem with
What did
vagueness?
but what did they learn? That they pretended that entailment means something? What's entailment mean?
Well, entailment means that they're logically committed to certain view.
No, they're not.
What do you mean they're not?
They're not committed to it. Why are they logically? They don't. Why? Who said that they subscribe to
They
those
they did.
inference rules?
Well, they
They
did.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, I would never say that. Seems like they're dumb.
Well, maybe, but they did. Yeah. So you don't
Okay.
subscribe to any inference rules?
No.
Okay. And so that's the objection to name the trait?
Well,
Like if we can't have like logical entailment, name the trait doesn't work. I mean, I agree with that.
yeah. There's no logical entailment. All right? What do you want? All right, wait here. Let's Kane jump in. He's gonna name the trade.
Well, I mean, before we proceed to like naming the trait, like can we just clear any meta objections if there are any?
Well, I think Kane's probably a more productive interlocutor because I don't think there's any inference rules.
It would be probably, yeah. I mean, it might be more productive if Kane were to say something here. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Like Kane is like when I watch your videos on YouTube, you're like you seem like a very cool and nice person, and then when I'm talking to you, I'm like shaking. I'm like, what is he gonna say? He's gonna be mean to me or something.
He's an intellectual powerhouse. You better watch out. Kane's gonna come get you.
You don't know what Kane's going to say. Yeah. It's it'll be interesting to hear what his contribution is. Yeah.
Yeah, Kane, just bring it whenever you're ready. I'm all ears. I stopped farming Travinkel in Diablo 2 for this.
I didn't understand anything in that sentence, but okay. Um, so, Kane, what do you think is like? What do you think name the trait highlights about people's worldviews? Do you think it does a good job at uncovering some deep information about what people think?
Um, I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. It's not. It's difficult for me to talk about this because when I've talked about name the trait in the past and I express my objections, people then say that's not what name the trait is. In fact, I once expressed some objections to it, and I believe I was talking to Avi, and he said that name the trait wasn't even an argument, and that I'd like misunderstood what it was. So, with that in mind, I just sort of feel like I'm kind of I mean, I don't know what to say. I thought I was going to hear an argument and then I would say something in response, but I haven't heard anything at the moment. It's just like I'm being asked to express an objection to something. I don't know what it is. So,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I mean, then there just must be a miscommunication because I got the impression that you have an objection that you wanted to unpack.
Oh wait, so So name the trait is like a dialectical process. Is that right? It's not an argument.
That's what I take it to be. Yeah.
So like when ask yourself has like that like flow chart or whatever with like a premise. If you reject it, you're contradicting yourself. Like what's that? That's not an argument.
Well, that's an argument so far as I understand that is being given um, if you say something like the value isn't lost, but the being in the last world has value, so obviously the value has been lost somewhere. So that the argument is meant to show that it's gonna lead to a contradiction, and the contradiction being the being have the contradiction being the value has been and hasn't been lost.
Okay. So the argument sort of implicitly takes for granted some sort of classical logic scheme, or maybe it could be a many valued logic, but like something where you can't have contradiction.
Something where you can't have contradiction.
Well, yeah, meaning like so it couldn't be a true contradiction that value is and isn't lost at the same time.
Well, I mean, you can accept the contradiction if you like. But typically when I run the dialectic, I'm saying that, let's say I'm debating a meat eater, right? I'm going to drop out a proposition that his view is either going to result in some kind of contradiction, or there is going to be some entailment that is going to be.
Well, why is it a problem for the meat eater if it's a true contradiction?
Repeat that one. Why it is a problem if it's a true contradiction?
Yeah, so value is and isn't lost, and that's a true contradiction.
Well, I mean, that's just gonna be rejecting the law of non-contradiction, and so the problem is going to be practical, of course. If you can deduce a contradiction on one's normative applied ethical position, then it's like your decision-making process is already you're unclear of which decision you should take or you ought to take. So the problem is going to be practical there. But if you want to accept the contradiction, then that's fine. So far.
Wait. Why would a contradictory entity inhibit like practical decisions? Like, cause take Kane's Vulture example. Like, I can play the Vulture game just fine, and I can practically do it.
I agree, you can. You've asked me what the problem is. You know, it would be a problem for me if on my applied ethical view it's going to be entailed that I shouldn't do an action in the same way in the same time. I'm going to be confused, and it's going to be a practical problem for me, I assume for most people. But let's grant that there is.
Wait a minute. I thought that the example that's used in this case is like a series of worlds or something where we take something like a cow and then we imagine like changing the cow gradually until you get to something more like a type of human being.
The other way.
Or you go the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. But now if you end up deducing a contradiction there, what practical consequences does that have? Because you're imagining these very outlandish alternative worlds. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to crop up in your daily life very often.
Well, depending on what the contradiction is, exactly where the contradiction is entailed, right? I've seen a contradiction where the person is saying like, yeah, I don't know how I should treat my mom, right? Or that was entailed on the view that they're unsure if it's ethical for their mother to be factory farmed or not, right?
Okay.
So maybe I agree. If maybe there is like some alien scenario, right? I assume this is what you're gonna call outlandish, and you're gonna say,
it just seems odd that you would. I mean, obviously, people can have whatever views they want, right? But it just seems like, the more if you were worried about the sort of thing that you've raised here, then I would say, all right, well, I'll just identify the contradiction as having to do with this process where we go through these worlds and we sort of change. So like the contradiction isn't going to be that it's okay to factory farm my mother and it's not okay to factory farm my mother. I'm just going to say, no, it's not okay for me to factory farm, for my mother to be factory farmed. But then holding that view is going to commit me to a contradiction somewhere else. You know, there's going to be a contradiction in terms of the way that I assign value to these entities in these alternative worlds where we're imagining gradually changing my mother from, you know, from my mother to like a cow or something. So there's going to be some entities in that line where I'm going to say that it's both okay to factory farm them and not okay to factory farm them. I'm
pretty sure that would be the entailment, yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem like it has any practical consequences because, you know, I never encounter entities like that in my, you know, in the world. In the world, what I'm encountering is like my mother, and then I'm encountering cows. I'm not encountering these like in between things.
Okay. So you're saying, yeah, there wouldn't be the practical problem that I've raised, but the point is going to be that the view is still logically contradictory, right?
But who cares?
Well, the person that
is an idiot. Like, I mean, if you think
Sorry,
that...
Wait. The person who agreed to debate the vegan on the proposition that his view isn't logically incoherent, or that his view doesn't have unacceptable entailment on their lives, right?
But wait, why couldn't there be a mediating dialetheist who just is like, yeah, there's a true contradiction, cool. This has no practical problem. This has caused no practical problems for me. Well, and then what's the issue?
Maybe by the law of explosion there would be, if you care about
what. That's not how like non-classical logics don't have the like explosions blocked. There is no explosion if you understand how non-classical logics work.
Yeah, I've heard of some non-classical logic, yeah, but I don't understand.
They don't have explosion. It's blocked. There is no. I mean, Kane could explain this more than I could, but
I've watched. I believe Kane had a video on non-classical logic. I've watched it, so I'm familiar with the explanation. But I really want to know, what are you arguing about right now? So you're saying, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't. So, like, the name the trait is defeated by just saying I don't care about the law of non-contradiction. That's it. That's all it takes. Because I don't see what the reductio to saying, like, okay, yeah, there's a true contradiction. There is a place where value is and isn't lost. It has absolutely no practical implications because I just don't eat my mom and I do eat a cow, and the end.
Are you defending the position right now that the position of the meat eater in question or the solution is just to accept the contradiction?
I mean, it just seems like an easy way to... I don't really understand what the problem is.
Well, the problem is logical, obviously.
What?
That's the problem.
What?
Them. The problem is a logical one if they accept the contradiction, obviously.
Yeah, but what...
And there may be a practical problem.
I don't understand how, if I'm a meat eater who adheres to a paraconsistent logic, that it's a logical problem for me to accept a true contradiction, and especially one that has no practical implications whatsoever.
Oh, I mean, so far as you agree that the view is self-contradictory, I'm satisfied. Even if I grant you all of that, right? Even if I were to grant you, oh, okay, you subscribe to some weird logic, you know.
Weird?
Yeah.
How's it weird? Well, it's weird because you did a poll in like the Western world and came to the idea that like Asia is stupid.
I wasn't
okay.
Finished. So just to avoid name the trait, if one accepts a logical contradiction, that's going to be totally satisfying for me.
No. You wouldn't do it to name the trait.
Because if I were to debate that person in front of other with the goal to persuade other people or to make other people reflect on their value, I'll most likely succeed in most cases.
No, so
And it's
the
totally
idea would be
fine.
more like,
You can accept the contradiction and be like, yeah, I don't care. My view is logically incoherent, but I do.
I didn't say
yeah.
I didn't say
So
incoherent.
I think that the point would be that there are a bunch of independent arguments for views like dialetheism, and so if somebody accepts those independent arguments and then they just find that there's a contradiction in some specific moral case, then that's not going to. So the idea isn't that, you know, we start out with somebody who's just like fully on board with classical logic and all of that, and then as a response to name the trait, they grant that there's a contradiction, but then they just say, oh, I don't care about that contradiction. I think what we're thinking of is more a person who just already has a bunch of other philosophical commitments that, you know, let them get on board with dialetheism. So like maybe they get on board with dialetheism.
That's right. What you're saying, what Kane's saying, by the way, is right. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about a meat eater who's already a dialetheist, not somebody who becomes a dialetheist just to avoid name the trait.
Well, then it is going to be unclear why would he agree to debate the proposition that's going to be on the table, because
so name the trait is impotent when it comes to people who.
I don't know what you mean by impotent.
Well, like if before we debate, we have a meat eater who says we're going to do name the trait, but I take it.
I think there's something very odd about the way this is being framed, which is it seems like you're framing this as like how the meat eater would perform with respect to people debating a proposition, like in the context of some sort of formal debate, which I actually just don't care about that at all. I mean, I have no interest in those sorts of things. So, you know, I thought that name the trait was supposed to be something that's used. You know, it's not just about like winning some sort of formal debate. I thought it was about, you know, changing people's minds and getting them on board with veganism.
Well, that's going to depend on the person who is running name the trait. People may have different goals. When I personally run it, that's one of my goals that you've named. It's not always successful, of course. It's not 100% successful. And the other goal that I have in mind is to make people reflect on their values. Because I don't think most people, especially non-philosophers, ever think about veganism and deeply about, you know, ethical issues. So for me, that's the job. And many times it's successful, many times it isn't. When it comes to convincing somebody, if you're trying to defend something like, yeah, name the trait can't convince 100% of the people or can't convince whatever amount of people, okay, sure, fine. But that's something that I already agree.
Wait, but I don't understand. So are you admitting that if somebody is a mediator who starts off as a dialetheist, that name the trait's just not going to be run on them, period?
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean by
what? I just don't see what's the reductio, like what's the reductio of it? What?
You've said name the trait is impotent against somebody who is endorsing such a view where they accept a true contradiction.
I'm just trying to understand. So, like, if you take it that it's just true that value does.
I want to know what it means for it to be impotent. Do you mean that it wouldn't work, or do you mean something else?
Well, I thought that the way it was supposed to work, right, was that there's going to be some reductio that's going to make people feel like socially awkward or something to bite the bullet on it, because they're going to go, oh, whoa, I just realized that I'll have to eat my grandma or I'll have to eat a retarded person. Now that I've realized that, I've reflected on my whatever, you know, I thought it's supposed to do a thing where if it's so obviously it can't be the case in the non-classical logic context that the gotcha is going to be that you contradicted yourself, because that's not a gotcha. If it's a true contradiction, it's a true contradiction. It's not a gotcha. So
maybe it's not a gotcha for a specific person who endorses a very specific view, and the fact that somebody accepts true contradiction doesn't mean that they accept them everywhere, right?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm just saying.
But even granted that, what is the claim that you're making, that the person wouldn't be moved psychologically? Maybe, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Never debated such person. I don't know how they would feel, whether or not they would accept the contradiction or
Well,
not.
no, but think about the example that we had earlier, right? So when Kane was talking, right? So you've got some hypothetical being where you say value is and isn't lost. This is a highly weird being where it has no practical consequences. And we say, okay, there's no practical consequences. I do agree that value is and isn't lost. All right. And then what?
He agreed that his view is self-contradictory.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a true contradiction. That's what he takes it to be.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's a true contradiction that value is and isn't lost. Just grant that, right? Or that's what they're saying. So now, the question is something like, what is the reductio? I mean, clearly, if the gotcha can't be, oh, it's a contradiction. They don't care. Like, they think it's a true contradiction. Yeah. So,
no,
but then
they don't care, but I do care. So far as my goals are concerned, into convincing people and making them reflect, that would be an outcome that I would be very happy with.
Wait. So the outcome you're happy with is just that you were born in the Western world where there was
the outcome that I'm gonna be happy with is if I were to debate somebody using name the trait and they affirm a contradiction. So far as I'm concerned, there, really big portion of my job is being done.
Wait, but don't you think it's a little weird that you think that just on the basis of like, okay, you were born in a Western society where there were like intellectual trends that led people to have, like a logic that only had the values true and false, and so therefore gluts were, I don't know, not accepted because of just some cultural accident. Like, I don't really get why that's a big victory. It just seems like really shallow.
Why it is a big victory?
Yeah.
Because it serves my goals, which are to make more people go vegan, to think about their values. And if somebody,
what percentage of the population do you think are like have a strong commitment to classical logic?
I don't know about that. But I still want to know, you've asked me 10 questions and I still want to know, what do you mean when you've said name the trait is impotent against somebody that accepts true contradictions? What's impotent?
I just don't see what the reduction, I don't see it, does, because it's lacking two kind of things that it's supposed to show the meat eater being wrong. So it's supposed to either use a reductio to have some socially awkward, uncomfortable consequence,
and the
given the reduction.
Contradiction, right? When we talk about
which they don't, that's off the table because we're in the framework of a non-classical.
When we talk about reductio ad absurdum, I understand it to be that the positions that the person in question holds lead to some type of a contradiction, or
that's not always what a reduction.
I don't mean to be rude, but I'm getting kind of bored.
All right, I'll stop talking.
Was there like anything else that like we wanted to like bring up here, or like?
Well, I've thought you guys had something to bring up here.
Well, I was trying to understand. Here's what we were talking.
Wait, how did this happen? I thought that there was somebody who wanted to do name the trait on me, right?
Yeah, he said when
I thought that's what was. And now
when he was
being told when you had something
when you were on vacation, right?
What's
when you were on vacation? This dude said he wanted to do the name the trait on you.
Wait,
right.
hold on. That's not what I've said. I've said that I'm interested in Kane's subjection to name the trait.
I think it's more of an idea that,
but
like a trick, like it's.
I want to clarify this, not to waste Kane's time and my time, right? This thing first.
What about my time? Where's your time go? Why was my time not mentioned in the waste of time?
You seem to be having fun, right? So your time is certainly well spent. But Kane,
what the fuck?
I wanted to know. I believe it was 1 month ago. What were your objections to name the trait, like a meta objections, whether or not there are fallacies being committed and so on? Because I've noticed you had negative attitude towards name the trait. That's what I wanted to talk about. And today I've been told that you wanted to present the objection. So that's what
did I say something about this a month ago? So, like what? I mean, I don't remember what I said. So,
No,
I mean, you'd have to tell me if you gave me the argument that you accept, then I can tell you what I think is wrong with it, or if I think there's anything wrong with it. In the case of something, I mean, I suppose my general view of something like name the trait is, I mean, okay, in addition to the points we've just been talking about, okay, it just seems like you can accept a contradiction there. I think another perfectly fine move is just to say, look, this is when we imagine doing this process where we change, say, your mother into a cow. It's just vague, right? There is some point where value is lost, but it's not like we can identify some specific point, but this is just an instance of vagueness in the same way that you can talk about, okay, where's the exact line between somebody being bald and somebody being not bald? Or where's the exact, line between, an egg and a glass? For pretty much any two things, you can kind of set up this thing, or it's just going to be unclear where the line between them is. Just doesn't seem like a problem to me to just accept that this is another instance of vagueness. So that's another thing, and then there's probably a few other things as well. But again, unless you want to tell me what you take the argument to be, it's hard to say anything.
Yeah, so just first to address the vagueness, obviously, when we run the dialectic, there are going to be many people who wouldn't be able to point out exactly where the value drops, but we can also accept a vague answer to it, or whatever they think the value starts to drop, and then we can test that with a hypothetical. For example, it doesn't need to be, the dialectic doesn't require a specific point. It can be a vague point. You can even answer with I don't know, but then, oh boy.
Okay.
Then there is going to be a reductio, right? If the answer is I don't know.
Is there? I mean, I don't know. Would you like to explain what the argument? I mean, I feel like I'm being asked for an objection to something, and it's like, what do you want me to say about this? I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard what the argument is.
Well, I mean, I told you. Coming into this conversation, I thought you had the objection, right?
Well, no, you just... Okay, look, let me try to help, okay? So,
especially because this is supposed to be some sort of dialectic process, so I assume it can go in many different directions. There's many different paths that I take it. If you're thinking of this as some sort of dialectic process rather than a specific argument, well, that's fine. But then, how am I supposed to know what sort of path? I don't know. This just seems like a very strange conversation to me.
Yeah, to me too.
Wait. About this point about the vague boundaries, right? So he's trying to say something like, if you said, let's say some person said, I don't know where the value drops off, right? Some usual person.
That wouldn't be a subjection, right?
Well, no. I know. I understand. I'm just trying to. I don't think Kane is as familiar with name the trait as you and I are. All right. So, if somebody said, I don't know where the value is dropped off, the reductio is supposed to be something like, well, what? So if a person had a single cow hair, you would be fine with killing them? So you don't know that? Are you really saying that you don't know that a single cow hair is enough for you to still have value? And that's supposed to be ridiculous, you see. So so I don't know can't be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's garbage. So obviously, I don't know can still stand perfectly fine. That's the answer.
Well, yeah, okay. So but going to that. See, this is what I mean. This is where I wanted to bring it.
Hold on, just to be clear. You don't know whether or not it's ethical to factory farm a human with a single cow hair?
No, so I think the answer would be no, it's not ethical to do that. You can't do that. No.
Okay. So then we do know, at least in one instance. So the answer is not...
The answer isn't I don't know, when you say I don't know where the value drops off, we're not making the claim that for this entire series, I just have no idea. It's the same as with other sorts of vague boundaries. So, there's going to be loads and loads and loads of cases where I can say, yeah, that guy's bald, that guy's bald, that guy's bald, and I know that. And I know that for all of these different variations on what a person's head can
You're
look
going
like.
to have
And
some
then,
idea, is what you're
sorry?
saying. You're going to have
Sorry?
some idea where the
Yes,
baldness
there's going to be a
would
bunch
come.
of cases where you say, I know this, and then there's going to be loads of cases where you say, that guy's not bald, that guy's not bald. And then there'll be some cases where you just say, I don't know. And so in the same way with this transformation of the human being into the cow, there's going to be some cases in the middle where the answer is, well, yeah, the value drops off somewhere there, but I'm not sure exactly where it is.
And that's a perfectly fine answer. I agree with you.
Wait, so what? So where is the ridiculous?
That seems like the intuitive. I mean, that seems like the natural.
The ridiculous thing is going to come, right? Because, like, look, let's say the person is asked a question, and first they say, I don't know. Then we give the one cow hair human reductio. They say, no.
I don't think that's what anybody meant by I don't know. I think that's just like a completely uncharitable way of interpreting them saying I don't know. But okay.
Well, maybe. I don't think it's going to
like obviously, yeah.
I don't think it's going to be unfair to interpret it that way, because clearly we are talking about a series of possible worlds, and that's going to be explained to them. So I don't take it to be uncharitable. But my point is, then they're gonna narrow it down, right? To some possible world where the answer is truly, I don't know, I'm not sure about this possible world. So the reductio is going to come on this possible world. Assuming that
what is the reductio?
Of course.
What's the reductio on some, like, I don't know, there's like a human leg.
The reductio is going to be like either a contradiction or some entailment that it's coherent on their position and they accept.
What? Okay, so like let's say there's a meat eater who would eat like a cow with one human leg. Like, what's the reductio of that position?
No, what's the trait?
What's the trait?
Mm-hmm.
What's the trait? Where, like the trait?
Sorry, let me summarize that for you. When they start narrowing down the possible worlds, right? They're going to name some point where they're going to be unsure about the value. So the answer would be, I don't know. Say they do know about the human with a cow tail, but at some point they won't know. When they define that point, from the trait named, we're going to derive whatever is to be derived. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, so here, why
they wouldn't necessarily have a point. I mean, again, vague boundaries don't tend to work like this. So if you take any kind of classic case of vagueness, then it's not just that the boundary between instantiating the property and not instantiating the property is vague. There's also going to be vagueness in terms of like when that vagueness arises. So if you say, well, what's the boundary between something that clearly instantiates that property and the vague cases? That's also going to be a vague boundary.
Sure.
So I don't think that, I mean, it's unlikely that there's going to be some specific point at which a person just says, right, if you change this tiny little, if you change from this possible world to this very, very close possible world, you take out a cow hair and replace it with a human hair, then bang, right? That's when the value changes, or that's when it becomes vague.
Well, I mean, that's something that we can test running a trait equalization process, running them through a different sets of possible worlds where we go closer and closer to the animal and see how their answer is going to change. That's something that we can do.
Okay.
I think that what you just said just completely ignored what Kane was trying to express to you, because he was saying that there's going to be vagueness in terms of what it is to even be like moving through those worlds. So it's not just that there's vagueness in terms of where the values dropped off. It's like what you didn't understand what he said?
I think I did understand what he said. He said that they won't be able to name a trait because they wouldn't be able to pinpoint where the vagueness starts, because it's going.
I think people can name traits. It's just like, whether those I don't know whether those traits are instantiated might be vague, or like the relation between those traits and the value might be vague in some way. Look, I don't know. Because I imagine that with this, there's multiple ways people can respond. So there's all sorts of things people can do. So yeah, I mean,
people can respond in many ways.
Yeah.
But I don't. Okay, so I don't understand. It's like, let's say you had a cow with like, I don't know, a quarter of its brain was like a human brain or some shit. I don't know, right? Where you say like it has a human cerebellum, but like a cow prefrontal cortex. I don't know what the fuck, just assembling this weird creature, and it's got like one leg that's a fucking human leg. All right, what? And then you say, I don't know. But let's say you say, okay, I'm iterating through the cases. I'm a particularist. I'm going through these cases. Okay, here you've presented me a holistic case where there's a cow with a human cerebellum and a human leg, and I go, I don't know what to do with this case. How is this supposed to make those people stop eating a hamburger?
So sorry,
Or like,
is the
what's
trait
the
a human cerebellum? Is that the trait?
No, that's not the. No, you're saying so. Like, let's say somebody says, "I'm a particularist. I evaluate the worlds on a case by case basis holistically." So, meaning I look at the total scenario. When you iterate through these worlds from human to cow, I'm going to have a different assessment on each of these worlds. I don't know until I assess them, because it's not that what.
Yeah, I said yes.
Yes. Okay. So then we get to you say a human with a single cow hair. I say, nah, I wouldn't kill him. And then you name all these examples because I'm a particular. So I want to know this about this holistic scenario about whether I would or wouldn't kill a particular being.
Yeah.
You name
to be clear,
one.
The particularist is going to only kill the one cow that's in the last possible world. The other cows they won't kill, right? Because they're a particularist, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's no commitment to any particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't understand. So, like, yeah, they would kill.
Particularists could kill a human and let the cow live. Like,
yeah, I don't know. So what I'm saying is, let's say you've talked to a certain particularist, and they say, "Yeah, I'm fine with killing cows," and then you go, "Okay, well, and like most of the cows that I come across, I'm fine with killing, whatever." So then you say, what about a human? We say, nah. What about a human with a single cow hair? Nah. Now we go through all these worlds, getting closer and closer to a cow. Okay? And then we eventually get to a world where it's like a cow with two human legs and a human cerebellum, but everything else is cow parts, and it's somehow alive, like it's a Frankenstein monster. And then you say, what would you do with this? And I go, I don't know. And then how does this make them feel bad about eating cheeseburgers? I don't. That's the part I'm not understanding. What's the reductio? Where are you going to get? Where are you going to get them and be like, ha! You're committed now to eating retarded people. Got ya.
So the question is, what the reductio going to be on such a view? One of the reductio is going to be, say you figure out your neighbor was such a being, but you never knew about it. Would you eat your neighbor? That's one reduction.
Well, yeah, then they would say, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they would say, I don't know, because my neighbor's a weird Frankenstein. My neighbor's a weird Frankenstein cow thing. First of all, I'd be surprised. I'd be like, wow, my neighbor's a weird Frankenstein cow monster. And then you would ask, would you eat your neighbor? And then I go, I don't know. First of all, I'm freaked out by the fact that I learned my neighbor.
The question is whether or not they're going to factory farm their neighbor, or be okay.
Yeah, the answer is I don't know. I don't know. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's going to be the answer. I know. You're not telling me news here. Either that or some contradiction. So
wait,
just to be clear,
where's the reductio?
That's the reductio.
The reductio is
wait. Reductio. So reductio is that if you tell them, so if they say that they don't know whether they would eat their Frankenstein cow monster neighbor, right, that's the reductio.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're afraid to bite the bullet on not knowing whether you would eat your Frankenstein neighbor.
Right.
What normal person do you think would have a clear answer on this? Like, do you think that the general population is like really clear on whether they eat their Frankenstein cow neighbor?
Maybe, I don't know. That's
So what
a
about
so
if you
important
I
question.
mean, why isn't this also out of interest, like why doesn't this also work with things that are plants? I mean, what if instead of it being a cow monster neighbor, it was some sort of like weird human plant hybrid thing? Like it has like tree parts growing out of it, but like kind of like a bit of a human brain in there or something as well. But do you think that there's also going to be a reductio in that case?
Um, if in the last possible world there is a plant, and in the first possible world there is a human,
Yeah, yeah. So instead of doing it with a cow, we just do it with a plant.
I don't think there is going to be a reductio. No.
Okay,
Wait,
so
what?
why
So there's a
why wouldn't it be?
Frankenstein monster with like a human brain, but like leaves growing out of it. Wait, so if there's a human with one cabbage, like one little piece of cabbage growing out of their back, would you kill them?
No.
Oh,
Okay, and then okay, so now
But
we take that and
you can just ask me what the trait is. I can give you that. You don't need to go through every possible world.
Well, hang on though. Okay, so I mean, you can give you can give the trait if you want, but surely there's going to be. I mean, the point is regardless of what you cite as being the trait, right? There's going to be a sequence of possible worlds where we have the sequence transforming atom by atom from a human being to a tree. And so, in the middle of those possible worlds, there's going to be some possible worlds where there's these sort of human tree hybrid things that are, whatever the trait is that you cite, there's going to be cases where it's just like, oh, it's not really clear whether that trait is instantiated by that thing.
So the trait is sentience.
Yes, so there'll be cases where it's just not clear whether the thing instantiates sentience.
Like what?
I mean, it seems like there's already examples of that in the living world. We don't actually even need to go to these weird possible worlds because you can just look at the variety of creatures that have lived in our world, and you can see that there's a gradual change from things like single-celled organisms like bacteria all the way up to humans. And it's like, well, are we going to say that I don't know, worms are sentient? Do we say that like bacteria are sentient? It's not entirely obvious where that line is to be drawn. I mean, different views in philosophy of mind are going to end up drawing that line in different ways. But either like wherever we draw that line, it's still going to be the case that I don't know, do you think that you go from sentience to non-sentience by just changing a single atom? And if you do think that that's the case, do you really think that you can identify where that happens?
I think, given my current worldview, I think I can get pretty close to it. Obviously, not a single atom.
Really?
all right.
I don't understand why are you laughing. I've been trying to answer the question.
We'll talk to us about
Well,
that.
okay, where is it? Where's the line between sentience and non-sentience?
Well, I would say the beings that are sentient have brain and have a complex central nervous system.
Okay, and you think that there is an exact point? You think there's like an atom difference between beings that have brains and complex central nervous systems and beings that don't?
No, I didn't say an atom. I would say.
Okay, but that's what you're going to have, right? When you do this sequence of worlds from the human to the tree, or indeed we just look at the actual world, because we have a sequence of organisms from human beings to single cell bacteria, and there's a huge range of cases where it's just like, do we want to call that thing a brain and a central nervous system? I mean, obviously these things evolved, right? They evolved gradually, and so there's a huge range of cases where it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of vague.
So I don't know why are you bringing up the vagueness objection, where I said that in the beginning of this conversation that vagueness is not a problem for me to run name that.
Okay, well, yeah. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is because you just said that the reductio in the case of the cow was, you're saying that if you can get somebody to admit that they're not sure whether they would eat their Frankenstein monster human cow hybrid neighbor, that you're going to say that's the reductio. That's just like a complete, that's I guess a completely absurd thing to be committed to.
Yes.
But now it seems that we have a similar problem where you can have some sort of organism that's in between a human and a tree, where it's just not clear whether it has a brain and a central nervous system, where it's not clear whether this actually is sentient. And so we just say, I don't know. I don't know what I would do with that thing. And so it seems that if the human cow hybrid is supposed to be the reductio, if they're saying you don't know in that case is supposed to be the reductio, I don't know, why wouldn't it be why wouldn't it also be a reductio in the case of the human plant hybrid? I mean, they just seem completely, like, structurally identical to me, these cases.
Especially if you give answers especially if you say things like Dr. Avi said, where he'll say things like, I don't really care much about what the consciousness of a spider is. If you agree a spider is sentient,
obviously, like, look, if we are talking about some type of trivial sentience, which I call to be something like a being just experiences, like, let's say, like darkness and light, right? But they don't experience complex feelings like pain and suffering and so on. Obviously, I wouldn't care about that sentience too.
That's weird.
So sentience actually isn't the criterion then. There's some other specific type of sentience that you're...
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't bother me. You can have whatever trait you want.
Yeah, but it's not sentient.
I thought you had an exact line, and you said you were very close to it, but it just sort of seems like this is a bit... I'm very unclear as to what this exact line is.
Or that it's sentience. Right. It seems like sentience could be constituted of just detecting light and darkness. Also, it seems a little weird to kill, let's say we had a human who could detect light and darkness and they look like, then I'm just going to shoot them? Like, what? Seems weird. It also seems like you're committed on that view to taking it that people with locked-in syndrome are just less valuable than, because say there was a person with locked-in syndrome, that their entire body's numb. So they do have a less complicated experience in terms that they don't move around and they're numb.
That I'm committed to that?
I just don't understand. Well, because it seems like you're. Well, I'm just saying.
Representation of my position, first of all, right? Because my position would be.
You said that as the complexity of sentience goes down, the importance of the being drops off.
I didn't say that.
But wait, so a being that only perceives lightness and darkness, you don't care about killing them, right?
I maybe care. There may be some other values that would account for that, right? But so far as veganism is considered, a being that is sentient to the point only to experience darkness, it would be vegan to kill them and eat them. That's the position. It's not the position that there wouldn't be some other value of mine that would account for that. That wouldn't account for that. So you saying that I wouldn't care or that I'm committed to, to viewing certain people with disabilities being less valuable is just false. Can you admit that?
Well, I'm trying to understand why the sentient thing that sees just light and dark. Why is that less valuable?
I didn't make the claim it's less valuable. I said it would be vegan to kill them.
Okay, so it's vegan to kill them, but they're still the same so you can kill things that are the same.
Instead of talking about what's vegan and not vegan, why don't we just focus on what we're committed to on the basis of this specific argument? I mean,
right.
I don't know. It just seems because who cares what counts as vegan and not vegan? I mean, it's the question, I suppose, is if we run something like name the trait, then where does that lead us? I would have thought that would be the more interesting question here.
Yeah. Okay. So wait. So sentience isn't your trait. It's some very particular kind of sentience, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you spell out what that is?
That would be experiencing emotions like suffering, pleasure, pain, and so on.
So wait. So a person who is almost no affect or is numb can be killed.
No, they would be sentient, on my view.
I thought you said that.
Wait, well, no. I mean, we can just stipulate by definition we can deal with I don't know, some sort of Vulcan alien that just doesn't have any kind of suffering, doesn't experience any kind of pain or pleasure. That's just not the way their psychology is structured. But they have like rationality, and they have, they can talk and reason, and they have
perceive
desires.
They have perceptions.
But they're not sentient.
What?
But they're
not sentient. They're sentient. They're just not the kind of sentient that has emotions and.
They have like the sentient of like a spider or something.
No, I mean this is somebody who is, like pretty psychologically sophisticated. I mean, this is the sort of
but they don't have
a Vulcan.
Yeah, they don't have emotions. They're not like happy or sad. They don't have any affects like that. But they perceive. They have complex, vivid perceptions.
So it wouldn't be the sentient that I care about, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but would you kill a Vulcan? A Vulcan is as smart as a person. They can reason like a person does. They just don't feel emotions, and they don't. Let's say that they're numb. They don't feel any.
Probably I wouldn't kill them, but if it is a sentience that I don't care about, like just experiencing, like, having the experience of, I don't know, a spider. Granted that the spider has this trivial sentience that was described, then I wouldn't object to it being killed or factory farmed.
Would you object to the Vulcan being killed and factory farmed?
Does the Vulcan has the sentience that I care about? If no,
well, I'm not really sure. I'm actually trying to figure out what the sentience you care about is, right? So I'm just asking you, right? Like I'm just stipulating that this being is somebody who is, sort of capable of reasoning like a person. They're capable of like doing philosophy, for instance. They have very rich perceptions, but they don't have emotions. They don't have pains. They don't like suffer. So they're kind of completely ahedonic. I just wonder what your view is of that. Like, is that the kind of sentience that you care about?
So it's like a robot, basically. A robot.
I mean, kind of in the sort of traditional sense, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't care about that being.
So I think it's interesting that
it's weird
that you consider it to be a reductio if you can get someone to admit that they are not sure whether they would kill their Frankenstein cow human hybrid neighbor. But you're just happy to accept that, I mean, I just don't care about these Vulcans. I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying that as an objection. I just think it's kind of interesting.
It's also a really bizarre thing for a vegan to say. You would eat their meat, right? You would eat like the Vulcan meat?
No, I wouldn't. I don't.
Wait, what?
I don't like the taste of the meat. But anyway,
why would it taste just like a vegetable?
Let me explain the first thing. So you're saying it's a strange thing that in one case I call it absurd if the person were to kill their.
Yeah, it is really weird.
The reason why I say it's strange.
Wait. But in the second case, where I'm okay with murdering or letting a robot-like being that is not sentient or has some trivial sentient.
They're not a robot. They're biological, but they don't have they have ahedonic. But...
Sure. They're biological. Plants are also biological. Who cares about that, right? And you're saying that that's weird. How is that weird? That's perfectly consistent with my values.
So, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly consistent, sure. But the reason why I think it's weird is because I suppose I'm thinking of it in terms of like how this is going to play out to sort of audiences and so on. I think that there's a lot of people who, the Vulcan being is a being that is, I think, like a very intuitive one to think about, and it's a being that like we have familiarity from with fiction and stuff. Like there are science fiction shows that have alien beings like this. There's people who might have them as their favorite. You can very easily imagine kind of getting along with such a being, and it does. I don't know. So I imagine for a lot of people. I mean, I could be wrong about this. I've never done any empirical work on this, but I can imagine that for a lot of people, the idea that it's okay to just slaughter the Vulcans would be a bit shocking. Whereas when you describe this like human cow hybrid, it really is. I mean, to me, it's like, what am I even imagining there? That's a very strange thing. What would that thing even be like? And so I don't have strong intuitions about how I would feel about it.
Especially if that audience was already okay with killing regular cows.
Right, exactly, yeah, because you're playing this to meat eaters, right? So I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not saying that you're being inconsistent. I'm not even saying that this is it's not an objection to your argument, to your position. I'm just
even if I were to grant everything that Kane says, let's say the audience is such that they are okay with murdering the neighbor, right? But they're not okay with murdering.
Well, they're not okay. They'd probably be confused like Kane.
Yeah, they don't know.
Hold on. I'm saying even if we grant that, right? And even if we say that my values are, strange to the people or repugnant to the people, all that this is going to show is going to show that people don't like my values, people don't like my sentient criteria, perhaps, right? But it wouldn't be an objection to name the trade process, which is what we are here to talk about.
Okay.
So, not understanding, why, why you run it.
I think this whole conversation has been a demonstration.
I mean, this seems. It just seems like the point is that name the trait is the sort of argument where, I mean, I'm looking at it as somebody who doesn't, I'm not somebody who really, I don't get on board with it initially, right? So I'm just kind of looking at this. I'm sort of on the fence about it. I'm like, okay, let's see what this argument's all about, and then. I hear this name the trait process and I just think, okay, it seems like there's a whole bunch of ways of avoiding anything that I would regard as a problematic conclusion. And it also seems like the very same process, if we apply it to the case of plants, is going to lead to conclusions that seem just as problematic. So it just doesn't seem like a very persuasive argument to me. I mean, that's my reaction to it. Now, I mean, if the idea is that, look, you yourself have thought through name the trait and, you've come to a position that's perfectly consistent and all of that. I mean, yeah, fine. There's no objection on that point. So I don't know. I suppose it depends on what you're looking for exactly when you ask for an objection to this argument. I can say that to me, it doesn't sound very convincing so far.
Oh, I mean, I believe you when you say it's not. It doesn't sound convincing to you because I saw your reactions to it were very. You had a negative attitude towards name the trait, or that's at least how it seemed to me, right? And I was thinking whether or not you believe there are fallacies being committed, or something more substantial than that. But
I don't really believe in fallacies. Period. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that there's fallacies being committed by this argument. No.
So all you're saying is that you're just unconvinced by name the trait, or that it doesn't move you.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more than that. I can tell you my reaction to this, and I can give you my reason.
It also I would add that maybe, I don't know if Kane's just not saying this, but I think he has said it in other points of the conversation, which is that it also seems like not only is it not moving to him, but if you imagine it moving an audience of meat eaters, it just seems like it's not going to work if the people are educated. Maybe if they're a bunch of dumbasses, yeah. But
it does seem like there's a lot of very obvious, ways out. There's a lot of kind of ways of presenting similar processes, like the plant thing, that would, I think, undermine people's confidence that this is something that should change their views. But I mean, look, I could be wrong. I don't know how people are going to react to things.
I mean, those are a bunch of empirical questions that JaQues made just now. So I don't know why that is interesting to talk about. How would the people react presenting, asking the vegan, what's the difference between the plant and the human, right? And they name sentient, and then the meat eater is going to to ask for clarifications, but just to remember that in the beginning of the conversation, they were not okay with clarifying their views. They were screaming vagueness, and then when the vegan is trying to narrow it down to some point, and they're gonna say, yeah, that seems pretty weird. Well, okay, maybe it seems pretty weird, but it's not an objection.
No. I think that's a slight misunderstanding of the point there, because the meat eater, what I'm imagining, the kind of objector that I'm imagining, is somebody who they don't have an issue with vagueness, period. Right? So if the vegan was to say, in the case of the plant, if they were to say, yeah, look, the human plant hybrid, it's just vague where that value drops off, and I don't know where those boundaries are. If the vegan were to say that, then of course the meat eater would be like, yeah, that's fine. But then in that case, if it's fine for you to do that with the human to the plant, why isn't it okay for me to do that when it comes to the human to the cow, right? Like, that's the point. It's not that they're okay with vagueness in one case and not okay with it in the other. They're okay with it in both cases, and then the question is going to be to the vegan, well, if you're okay with it here, why aren't you okay with it in the case of the human to the cow?
And the answer to that is going to be that the vegan values are better, are more explicit. Wait, hold on. Because the vegans say they name sentient, right? It's unclear.
Yeah, some really weird version of sentience that is super weird. But okay.
It's unclear what the trait that the meat eater is going to name, right?
Well, hang on. What's the objection? I mean, is the objection about vagueness, or is just the objection that like that they don't have a trait?
Well, do they have a trait in that hypothetical person that you're describing? Because you haven't named what this person is naming. You just say they're not sure.
Yeah, I mean, they might do or they might not. I mean, I'm not sure why that.
Well, I mean,
like what that has to do with the point about.
Right. Well, it has everything to do with the point.
You could name. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, you could name traits if you wanted to. So you could say something like, okay, the trait is just like human brain, right? Just having a very specific kind of brain structure, or a very specific like developmental path or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but that trait, he's gonna have to tank a massive reductio there. And the reductio is going to be, again, imagine your cousin. They scan his brain and they find out that he actually doesn't have those neurological pathways that you named.
Okay, yeah. So then they just say, yeah. Well, then I either I just don't know in that case, or yeah, it is okay to eat them.
That's right.
What's the process?
But I mean, like similarly. Okay, so what if we?
In the I don't know case, what is the?
Wait,
how's it going to stop you?
But similarly, like, look, you can do the same thing with what you said, right? Like, we could scan your cousin, and then it could just turn out that, oh, actually, all of the stuff that your cousin is doing, where your cousin is saying things about how they feel bad or they feel pains, they're just like putting on a performance, right? That's, you know, there's not actually. Maybe your cousin is the sort of psychological stuff that's going on inside departs very significantly from what their behavior is. I mean, it seems logically possible. Like, that's, in principle, we could discover that. And so, you know, again, now you're going to have to say.
Basically, you discover that my cousin was never sentient, or is no sentient, right? Similar to.
Well, I mean, assuming we're defining sentience in a very narrow way, yeah. But we can imagine that your cousin still has. I mean, I would say that your cousin is sentient in this case because they still have a very rich psychology of, like, you know, perceptions and mental images and you know, reasoning and all of that stuff. But they just, you know, the emotional side is just dropped out. But yeah, that's the idea.
Well, I mean, like, when you say perception, like, what exactly are those percepts that we're talking about, right? It's going to be a long conversation.
Things like blue, red, smells, tastes, touches. Just
wait. Can I ask you a question?
Well, isn't touching something like experiencing?
Wait. Do you think stop being sentient when they're in deep sleep?
No, but I believe somebody who is brain dead is not sentient.
No, but wait a second. So like if you take like a particular time, right, and the person is experiencing no emotions, they don't have any like there isn't any emotional content, no perceptual content, no even sense of light and dark, and there's no memories or anything like that, right? During like a given time. And then a few hours later, they wake up and they have like this these emotions and feelings and all these things and pains and things you care about, right? Why is it? What is your reason? What's the trait that makes it not? Oh, sorry. Like, why is it not okay to kill them when the deep sleep is going on?
Because they had the ability. They had the ability. They were capable of experiencing it, but they just didn't at that point.
Okay. All right. So, but how? Okay. How long though? So like single cell organisms are capable of evolving over time into humans,
Mm-hmm.
right?
They did not have the ability before, and the person that is in a deep sleep had the ability to have such a
No, I don't think you're understanding my point.
Well, I'm
I
just
don't know why.
answering you. You just don't know what to say at this point.
What? No, that wasn't my.
I mean, I think that the point being made by JaQues is that when we talk about what it means for something to have the ability to do something, it seems like there's this kind of arbitrary restriction in terms of time. So, like when we talk about a human being in deep sleep, and we say, well, look, the thing is they have the ability to, I don't know, like have feelings and perceptions and all of that. The idea is well, they have the ability because we're supposing like, hey, you could wake them up. There's like some time period later where they could do this stuff, or they have done this stuff in the past or something. When it comes to the single-celled organisms, the idea, I think, is okay. Well, if we look at if we just extend the time period to like billions of years, then they could evolve into these creatures that do have perceptions and
Kane's right about his interpretation of what I'm saying.
What you were talking about is that a single-cell organism has the potential to have the ability sometime in the future. But what I named as the trait is very specifically that the person that is in deep sleep has the ability at this moment in time.
Look, you're not understanding that potential to have the ability and has the ability. You could also frame it that the person in deep sleep has the potential to have the ability to be sentient only when they wake up.
But
I don't know what that.
But do they have the ability at that point in time?
They have the potential to have the ability. Obviously, if I shoot them in the head before they wake up, they don't have the ability.
I didn't ask you that.
What?
I didn't ask you whether or not they have the potential. I asked you whether or not they have the ability while being in that state.
I think that's unclear. It depends on how you want to define ability.
It's your hypothetical.
What I'm saying to you is we have a bigotry about the way that we struggle. We talk about.
Just answer the question, and I'll tell you whether or not it's going to be vegan or not to kill them.
Why do we care whether it's vegan or not to do something? That seems.
I don't even know what that means. Also, there's a bunch of definitions of veganism. I feel like a bunch of vegans would be really uncomfortable killing an animal that could just experience light and dark.
Or killing a Vulcan.
Yeah, or killing a Vulcan. That seems really un-vegan. But yeah, I don't think all vegans are like on board with you about eating Vulcans, like or farming them.
Probably many vegans are not on board with me eating. What was this animal called that doesn't have a brain in the water? Oyster.
Do you eat oysters?
I don't, but I think it's ethically okay to do so because they're not sentient. So far as my view is concerned, and many vegans are not okay with that. There are also vegans that are not okay with eating certain plants.
Yeah, so then it seems like a really uninteresting question to keep talking about, like what would vegans do when they don't even agree.
You were the one who said it. we didn't raise it.
No, you were the one that raised it.
You were the one who You were the one who was talking about what is vegan and not vegan to do, and then I said that doesn't seem like a very interesting way to frame this.
Well, I mean, okay, so what's the answer to the question then?
Wait, the answer about whether somebody has an ability in deep sleep?
No, the answer about the person in that hypothetical that you've named.
The deep sleep person.
Yeah, in that moment in time when they're in deep sleep. Are they sentient or not? Do they have the ability? So they don't have the ability. They
don't have sentience. So the idea would be, the assumption would be they don't have sentience. They regain that, like sentience comes about at a later time. But the point is that if you want to think of What the fuck? What are these things, Kane? It's called like an in car or an out car.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
I mean,
But
look, I also believe that like AI or like robots in the future.
no. This is not the same point. It's called an in car, right?
Yeah, so that's the car when it's inside the garage, and then the out car is the car when it's outside.
Yeah. So you can have objects, right? Like you can have. So are you familiar with like a time worm? So like if you take a B theory of time, you can have like a worm like object that is in a 4D space, so it's existent over time. Like you might look at your life as like a 4D kind of worm in time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you're saying that you're the same person when you wake up from deep sleep, and that you maintain this identity, and that's the way that you have that ability, because you're taking it that you're the same person over all these different times. What?
Did I?
I mean, I don't know what you mean. So wait, so then you're saying that this thing has the ability to maintain its identity? I don't know what
You're saying that I've made a bunch of claims that I didn't.
Wait. I'm just trying to understand. Like, I'm trying to give you an example, right?
I'm trying to understand what's the objection.
You look, a baby looks way different than you look. Like when you were a baby, you look way different than you look right now, right?
Are you going to give me the objection? Because it's getting pretty.
What the fuck? I'm trying to give you an intuition pump so you can understand my example about the bacteria and the person and why it raises a problem for your thing about deep sleep.
What's the problem?
Like I'm trying to. The problem is it the trait
is it a logical problem?
You're saying that the trait is sentience, and I think that that's highly suspicious, because I think you could say that there's a good argument that people in deep sleep aren't actually sentient. And you're saying, well, the ability to be sentient is the relevant factor and not sentience itself.
So what's the problem?
I'm trying to say that when you say that you're really clear about what your trait is between a person and a plant, I think that you're not nearly as clear as you believe. And I'm trying to demonstrate that for you.
Oh, maybe, sure, I can agree to that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
How is that a problem?
How is it a problem for the media? What the? I don't. That's the whole. The whole point in contention is that it's not a problem to say you don't know about your Frankenstein cow neighbor, and it's not a reductio.
Oh, it is a reductio, and it is a problem for them.
I mean, I could try to help you get clear on this point that sentience isn't the thing that you care about, but maybe you don't want to learn, so it's fine.
I mean, are you suggesting that I'm mistaken about my own values?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been demonstrated multiple times in the conversation, actually, that you change what it's not sentience. It's actually this very particular kind of sentience, but it's not that. It's some other.
I'm trying to narrowing it down for you, because clearly you're not okay with vagueness in that case, right?
Oh,
like,
dude.
Even Kane mentioned like atoms. Can I narrow down the atoms?
Dude, we're fine with vagueness. The point is, you're the one who had the problem with vagueness. We don't have a problem with vagueness.
I don't, and I've stated in the beginning in that conversation.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe you personally don't. When you were talking about this name the trait thing, right? I, as the person who objects to name the trait, right? So I'm saying, look.
But you don't have an objection, Kane. Your objection is that you don't like it.
I'm done with this now. I've had enough. Can we just stop now? We've got more important things.
Can you send us the recording?
Yeah, sure.
Can you send the recording, please?
Yeah, I'll post it. And next
all right.
time,
I don't know what the fuck your name is. PkD. Is that what you go by?
Next time, message me when there is an actual objection, please, because it's just wasting my time.
What? You just send me the recording. All right.
All right. See you guys.
Send me the recording.
What is your problem? I mean, seriously.
I'm sorry?
I said, what's your problem?
I have no problem at all.
Okay, then why was your time? What?
I'm
My
sorry.
time was wasted. I have no problem. My time was wasted. I have no problem. All right. Send me the recording.
All right.
All right, bye.